تعالها خليك رجع الله احمد
يا حبيبي يلا انتوا احنا ولا انتوا.
It's about time we stop those of us who support, as most of us do, Israel in this body, for apologizing for our support for Israel. There's no apology to be made. None. It is the best $3 billion investment we make. Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region.
There's been a lot of death and destruction in that region, but I've never seen anything like
Since
this.
October 7th, 47 Palestinian families have been completely erased from the civil registry. Everyone in their entire bloodline is gone.
Sorry, it's very
Sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers,
very difficult to look at these
daughters,
images.
sons, and grandparents.
And
Everyone is
the
gone.
human cost.
When I'm back in the White House, the United States will stand with Israel all the way, 100%, without hesitation, without qualification, and without any apology. We're not going to be apologizing.
Bringing home hostages is not top priority. Walls must be destroyed. The Israeli military has killed more Israeli hostages than they have rescued.
It certainly sounds like the Netanyahu government has not made the changes that they have been asked to make for the past few weeks.
They have been receptive to those messages. Those messages that he delivered in public, we are also delivering in private.
For 3 weeks or more now, including on this program.
They have been receptive to those messages. Now, again, I want to make it clear. The right number of civilian casualties is 0. And clearly, many thousands have been killed, and many more thousands have been wounded, and now more than 1 million are internally displaced. We're aware of that, and we know that all of that is a tragedy. We grieve with all those families. That's why we continue to work, as Secretary Austin said, with our Israeli counterparts to get them to be as careful and as precise and as deliberate in their targeting as possible. And I would tell you, as I said, they have been receptive. They went into North Gaza with a much smaller force than what they had originally planned to do. And here you have in the last...
the United States slowed down those operations.
And if you have in the last 24 hours, they have been putting a map online of places where people in Gaza need to avoid and need to go.
I don't have connectivity widely in Gaza.
But, well, they've also been doing it with paper and leaflets and that kind of thing.
Tell me, name me one more nation, any other nation, that's doing as much as the United States to alleviate the pain and suffering of the people of Gaza. You can't. You just can't.
My message would be first and foremost to say thank you. I know that almost all of the people who watch this are strong, real supporters of the State of Israel, of the Jewish nation. And I thank you for that. And I think you should be proud in how Israel is holding up. Israel is strong. We are committed to winning this. We understand what's at stakes here. We will defeat Hamas. It'll take months, maybe years in doing, but eventually we will defeat Hamas. And it will be a very clear message to all of these Iranian terrorists and proxies around us that if you mess with Israel, these are the consequences, and you will have to deal with a generation of trouble after you attack Israel.
The International Court of Justice has found it possible that Israel has committed acts
Is
of
there
violence
anything
against
at this point that would stop the president
In
from
a statement,
supporting
the
Netanyahu?
State Department said they have consistently made clear that Israel must take all possible steps to minimize civilian harm, increase the flow of humanitarian assistance, and address the humanizing
There
rhetoric.
is no red line. There is
Israel's
no
actions in Gaza
point at which
have
the
led to the
president
need for a
would
new
stop
term.
his.
I would just tell you that we continue to believe the approach that we've been taking.
Wounded child,
I'm
no
not going
surviving
to,
family.
I will let him speak to what he was speaking to, but I will say some of the obstacles that we have seen from the Israeli political establishment. You have seen ministers of the Israeli government block the release of flour from the port of Ashdod. You have seen ministers of the Israeli government supporting protests that blocked aid from going into Kerem Shalom. So all of those things are obstacles coming from ministers inside the Israeli government that we have called out, that we have said are unacceptable, that we have said should end.
Israel is prohibiting aid convoys from delivering desperately needed food and water.
We want to see another crossing open. It's something we're engaged with quite directly with the Israeli government, and that includes in the conversation that the Secretary had with Minister Gantz today. He was quite direct and quite frank about the seriousness of the situation on the ground and the fact that it is incumbent on everyone involved to do more to get aid in urgently, as soon as possible.
But this word genocide is getting thrown around in a pretty inappropriate way by lots of different folks. What Hamas wants, make no mistake about it, is genocide. They want to wipe Israel off the map. They've said so publicly, more than one occasion. In fact, just recently. And they've said that they're not going to stop. What happened on the 7th of October is going to happen again and again and again. And what happened on the 7th of October? Murder, slaughter of innocent people in their homes or at a music festival. That's genocidal intentions. Yes, there are too many civilian casualties in Gaza. Yes, the numbers are too high. Yes, too many families are grieving. And yes, we continue to urge the Israelis to be as careful and cautious as possible. That's not going to stop. From the president right on down. But Israel is not trying to wipe the Palestinian people off the map. Israel's not trying to wipe Gaza off the map. Israel's trying to defend itself against a genocidal terrorist threat. So when if we're going to start using that word, fine, let's use it appropriately.
I want to turn to the Middle East. There are reports that negotiators in Paris have agreed to the outline of a new deal between Israel and Hamas to free hostages in Gaza in exchange for a multi-week ceasefire. Can you confirm whether that outline has been agreed to? And if so, what does it look like?
Israel's military is killing Palestinians at an average rate of 250 people a day, exceeding any other daily death toll of any conflict that has unfolded in the 21st
and came
century.
to an understanding among the four of them about what the basic contours of a hostage deal or temporary ceasefire
For
would
100
look
days,
like.
the people of Gaza
I'm not going to go
endured
into the
living hell.
specifics of that because
Nowhere
it
is
is
safe and the entire
still under
population is at
negotiation in
risk of
terms of
famine.
hammering out the details of it. There will have to be indirect discussions by Qatar and Egypt with Hamas because ultimately they will have to agree to release the hostages. That work is underway, and we hope that in the coming days we can drive to a point where there is actually a firm and final agreement on this issue, but we will have to wait and see.
I get criticized for having said
Where
a
there's
long time
no
ago,
Israel,
you
there's
need
not a
be
Jew in the
to be
world
a
to be
Zionist.
safe.
I'm a Zionist.
What
Where
about
there's no
America?
Israel, there's not a Jew in the world to be safe.
This is
Day
day
145 of the October 7th War.
First, I will start with an update on our casualties from this war.
Gaza civilian
Fatalities since the
casualties
start of the October
have risen
7th
to over
massacre have unfortunately risen to
30,960, with
582.
over
That is up 2
72,524
since our
wounded,
last briefing
and over
yesterday. The people
7,800
of
missing.
Israel grieve with the families
Dozens of
of
bodies
Major
wrapped in
Iftach
improvised white
Shachal,
cloths
aged
that
25,
double as
was
shrouds,
killed in battle
lied
in
together
northern
in a
Gaza.
newly
He was
dug
from
mass
Haran
grave.
in southern Israel.
They are unidentified
Captain Itai Seif
Palestinians who
was
were killed
24
in an
when he fell
Israeli
in
attack.
fighting
Their
Hamas
bodies
also
either
in
charred
northern
beyond
Gaza.
recognition
He
or
was
torn
from
apart
Yerucham.
to the point where the burial
The
supervisors
IDF and all
are sometimes not
Israelis
completely
share
sure
in the
if they got the whole
terrible
person.
grief of their families. We will continue to accompany them at this unbearable time. Our hearts go out to all the families of those soldiers killed in action, as well as those who were murdered, taken hostage, and wounded.
Thank you.
More than 100
You
people
don't have
were
any
killed
doubt
in
that
this incident in
on
northern
one
Gaza
side did the shooting
in an event known as the Flower
the
Massacre.
shelling and so on.
Israeli troops
Said,
opened
I
fire
have
on
seen
civilians,
reports
gathering around food aid trucks,
I have seen
causing
different
panic.
reports with
The
respect to
chaos
that
and
very
confusion
question.
only began
We don't know,
once
as I
Israeli
said
troops
earlier, the
opened
ground
fire,
truth of what happened, which
and
is
many
why
of the
we
victims
think
were
it's
run
appropriate
over
that
by trucks
investigation be
in the
conducted.
ensuing panic.
You think these people died because of a violent act?
These people died because
Israel
there's
has been
a
intentionally
conflict that
starving
is going on.
Palestinian
These
people
people
in
died
Gaza
because
since the 8th of
humanitarian aid
October.
has not been able
Now it is
to
targeting
be
civilians
delivered
seeking
in a
humanitarian
safe
aid in
manner.
humanitarian
I keep
convoys.
saying here, right, that
Israel must end its
the
campaign
way
of starvation and targeting of
we
civilians.
operate right now is not safe.
15
And I
children
said,
have already died
said it
of
even yesterday.
malnutrition
It is
in
not
Gaza
safe for those
City.
people who deliver the aid. It is not safe for people who
As the risk of
receive
famine
the
continues
aid.
to rise,
This is
all
a
children under 5,
chaotic,
335,000 are at high
opportunistic
risk of
humanitarian
severe
operation that we're trying to
At
run.
least 90% of children under
We
5
don't know
are affected
exactly,
by
I mean, as
one or
far as
more
we're concerned, we
infectious
don't know
diseases.
exactly what happened, but whether
In
people
January,
were
1 in 6 infants
were
children
shot
under 2
and
in
died as a
northern
result
Gaza
of
were found
Israeli
to be
gunfire,
acutely
whether
malnourished.
they were crushed by a crowd, whether they were run over by trucks. These are all acts of violence, in a sense, due to this conflict.
And let's not forget how this started, okay? There'd be no need for
Two weeks
aircraft
before October 7th, Israeli
Hamas had
airstrikes hit
chosen
Gaza
to
for the
break
third
what
day in a
was a
row.
ceasefire in place on the
On
6th of
October the
October.
4th,
So let's not
medics
forget how
reported
this
Gaza
situation
Strip
started.
protesters
There is
received
a need
wounds to
here.
ankles.
Many people are in desperate
Before the
need of
Hamas
food,
attack
water,
on October
medicines,
7th,
and fuel.
Israeli
the United
forces
States
had already
was
killed a record
and
of
remains and will
234
continue to be the
Palestinians.
leading provider of humanitarian
No
aid.
ceasefire existed before October
We take that
7th.
responsibility seriously.
And given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire.